Dr. Anthony Fauci is staring down a potential vote to hold him in contempt of Congress. Republican Senator Rand Paul is calling for potential legal action after the former top U.S. health official refused to answer questions about the origins of COVID-19 during a hearing this week. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment rights more than 100 times, including on some pretty basic questions.
What day of the week is it today?
I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
I respectfully decline to answer.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
I respectfully decline to answer.
You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the Fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards. But now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does.
Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. It was certainly interesting to watch. Why does a guy, Jonathan, who has a pardon from former President Biden, why does he take the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times in a case like this?
Yeah, that's such a good question because, one, like you said, the Fifth Amendment is any truthful answer that would tend to incriminate you. But we know he has this pardon, this essentially blatant pardon from Joe Biden, which says basically anything federally is covered, so you can't incriminate yourself if they can't prosecute you. So there's really a hard argument there. And also there's another argument what Senator Paul has latched on is this waiver argument. When he gives this opening statement and starts going into the subject matter, he's arguably waived his Fifth Amendment privilege right there and can't then subsequently invoke it. The only thing that he has a plausible Fifth Amendment argument, in my view, is on possible state charges, because as has come up this week, the state of Florida is looking into him for criminal violations. So that's the only thing he has a plausible argument for. But I do think it's appropriate for Congress to hold him in contempt and refer to DOJ and sort of let them sort the legal issues out and determine how to go forward with this matter.
Well, did he have, privilege to begin with to not answer questions?
On federal matters, the answer, I think, is no because of that pardon. Also because he got into subject matter and waived it. He does have an argument that, well, the pardon from Joe Biden does not cover his state violations. So he could say, I'm invoking the Fifth because I also believe I violated state law, and my answers would tend to incriminate me on state law, makes him actually look even worse. But still, so that would be the only place, and I don't think he went in there thinking it was that, because no one knew that Florida was looking into him. So he went in there basically saying he has it under federal criminal violations, which I don't think he has, and that's the best reason to hold him in contempt, because you can't just say, hey, I'm embarrassed because I wrote some crazy stuff in my diary that's going to make me look like a schoolgirl giddy to meet Hollywood celebrities, so therefore I don't want to be embarrassed, I'm taking the Fifth. You can't do that. So I think that's where he went in there, arguably, to save himself from humiliation and exposing his lies and other types of behavior that I think is pretty hard to defend. But yeah, he can invoke it, and the question is going to be ultimately for DOJ and the courts to say, was it proper? And if not, they can hold him in contempt, which can expose him to jail time. And there is precedent in the last administration holding both Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in contempt for not cooperating with Congress. So this is not groundbreaking to do so. And it certainly would be appropriate if he did not have a reason to do so.
Fauci says that Senator Rand Paul has an, quote, unhealthy obsession with me. Rand Paul spoke to Will Cain earlier this week. Here's what the senator had to say. Listen.
If I ask him, did you delete 5,000 records during your tenure? Did you have your assistant delete these emails? If he says yes, even though it's a crime, he's admitting to a crime he's been pardoned for. So he wouldn't have any immunity. I don't know how you plead the Fifth Amendment to something you've already been granted immunity for. But this is a legal decision, and that's why I think it needs to be pursued in court.
Those diaries certainly seemed to suggest that the doctor's private beliefs were much different from what he was saying in public.
Absolutely right. And Senator Paul, whether or not it's an obsession or not, it seems quite healthy because he's really uncovered a lot of things and a lot of really bad things that Dr. Fauci did with respect to the origins of the pandemic and also the mitigation strategies advocated. And he was putting stuff in his diaries that directly contradicted what he was telling the American people, which is, it's really awful if you think about what the American people went through during COVID. And Dr. Fauci was never consistent. Plus, I mean, I always thought this, it just seemed like a guy during this time frame, he should have been extremely busy with work and had more time than anyone I know to go on late night TV, baseball games, photo ops. It was really unseemly the way that he just seemed to not take his job to the level of seriousness that it demanded during this time.
I just want to read part of that pardon that Joe Biden gave him, a full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against the United States which he may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1, 2014 through the date of this pardon, arising from or in any manner related to his service as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force or the White House COVID-19 Response Team, or as chief medical advisor to the president. 2014, now that was way before COVID, but it suggests that some of the research he was doing into gain of function research may have been a problem, or at least someone in the Biden White House thought so.
That's exactly right. They went all the way back to 2014, and they certainly seem to have a reason. And you also wonder, it was the Biden White House, but what role did Dr. Fauci and his legal team have in securing that pardon? Because maybe there's stuff going back to 2014 that they were extremely concerned about. And when you look back at what's come up since, that would be gain of function research, which is really the critical issue here that Rand Paul was looking at.
Sure seems interesting, you know, going back way before COVID, 2014. You have to wonder why. Jonathan Fahey, maybe one of these days we'll find out. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.